1 million bucks by understanding the back end. This is what Jay Abraham taught me. The money's in the back end, right? If you know anything about Jay Abraham, he's a teacher of marketing par excellence. And one of the very first things you learn from Jay is the front end and the back end, right? This is like 101. The front end is the thing you do to get an initial customer the first time. The back end is everything that happens after that, basically. When I got started in this business back in 1997, my front end was the amazing firm that sells products like crazy. It sold for 67 bucks. My back end was the cash like clockwork system, and it sold for 500 bucks. At the time, something like for every one amazing formula we sold for every 8 amazing formulas we sold one cash like clockwork. I mean, I'm doing that from memory. It's been 20-something years. But that's what I remember, right? It was very, very successful. And the thing was, at the time, I paid out 60% commissions on the front end on the amazing formula. And that was huge. Like back then, nobody paid 60%. Today, 60% is not very good. People pay 100% because they understand front end, back end, right? They understand that the money's in the upsells and the money's in their follow-up sales, right? That you just need to get a customer. Hey, Rick. Well, welcome back. I hope you're doing okay. I see you be on the road with your show. Hope you're building your list and mailing offers to your list. And so you have the front end and the back end. Now, the real business is not the front end. A lot of people, they make most of their money on the front end, the initial sell to a customer. But the real money is in the back end. And in fact, Jay taught a method called concentric circles. The way concentric circles work, now you need volume to do this. That's why I think most people don't do it. You need a pretty good volume to do it. But the outer ring of the circle is people get your free thing or your cheap thing, right? Then the next circle is you come in and you sell those people something for $100. The next circle is you come in and you sell them something for $500. The next circle you come in and you sell them something for $1,000 or $2,000, right? Next little circle, he would sell something for $10,000 or $20,000. So now, Jay always operated in concentric circles, or often operated in concentric circles. Now, a lot of people today don't believe that. They're like, just screw it, let's just go for the big ticket sell. That sometimes works. That can work. I don't have a problem with it. But I learned from Jay Abraham. He taught concentric circles, and he taught the back end and the importance of the back end. And so your business is really the back end. And so if you have an anemic back end, meaning the higher margin, more profitable products and services you sell after that initial sell, then you need to work on it. You say, well, Marlon, how do I work on the back end? Well, number one is you got to have higher margin products and services to sell, either your own or other companies, right? You can have other companies. When you're selling products by other companies, Jay called that being a host. Today, we kind of call it being an affiliate marketer, but it's the same concept. So if you either don't have a big ticket or you don't have the sales process to sell at the webinar, the phone sales, or whatever, then you need to promote somebody else's affiliate offer on your quote back end. And you need to think in concentric circles, not just in terms of one back end. What if you have a back end beyond the back end? Again, concentric circles, right? So this really expands your thinking of it's not just, I got a customer, I provided them a product, I provided them a service, but I got a customer, and that was the front end. Then what happens, the circle after that, the circle after that, the circle after that, having a series of offers to them that progressively, typically make you more money, more profit, more margin. That was Jay's concept of concentric circles. Another concept that he had that I learned from him related to the back end was the moving trade. And the idea is that you may offer something today to your list or to people, and people aren't interested in it. or a lot of people. But if you go back in a month or two, they may be interested. And the reason is because people's interests change, they move. But they may not be interested today. They may be interested in 3 months. They may not be interested for the next 6 months, and then they may be interested in a year, right? This is called the moving parade, right? And so, hey, David, how are you? Thomas, how are you doing? Rick, I'm glad you're here. So the application to you is this. Not just what is your front end, because that's just the price of getting the customer, but the back end. And in today's world, the way that you sell that back end is typically through your email sequence. So people buy that front end, and then you have an email sequence of which the objective is to sell the higher priced product. Now, typically in that email sequence, you might have a sales letter, you might have a webinar, you might have a video sales letter, you might have a survey they take, you might have a request for them to set up a calendar appointment so you can talk to them. You know, if you don't like writing or you don't like doing webinars, then set up a calendar appointment and talk to them on the phone, right? But Myron Golden says you make more money by making more offers. There's a lot of truth to that. Right, there's a lot, but what he's really talking about is mining the gold in the back end. And none of us probably do a quarter of as good of a job of it as we could, right? I certainly don't. I don't think most people do. Some do, right? But they probably have an anemic front end, like they make all their money on the back end, but they have an anemic front end. It's really the interaction between the front end. That's the thing that brings people in the door. And the back end, which is where the money is really made. I'll tell you a story here that's very simple. Is I believe this whole thing, front end and back end, came from the circus days, because they called the front end of the carnival, the fair or the carnival. The front end was where the cotton candy, the caramel covered apples, and so forth, the funnel cakes were sold. That was the front. That would pull people in the gate, right? That was the front end. Then you had the midway, right? And the midway led to the back end of the circus, which was the shows and the expensive rides, right? So you had the front end that of your business. That's your caramel cover apples, your cotton candy, the melt in your mouth stuff, the funnel cakes. You have the midway, right? Those are your mid tickets. And then you have the back end, but the money's really in the back end. Everybody thinks the money in the carnival's in the midway. The money's not in the midway, although there's money there, but the money's in that back end. The shows and the rides, right? So that's an analogy for your business that you may think of. What's your front end, what's your midway, and what do you got on the back end, or do you got anything on the back end? If you don't got anything on the back end, either create your own bigger ticket, higher margin offers, packages, bundles, right? My Cash Like Clockwork system was just a bundle of my products, right? So you can just have a bundle. But you got to know what it is. And then I think that connection between that front end sell and the back end sell, that connection has to be good. In other words, you got to be aggressively booking people onto your calendar to talk to you on the phone so you can sell them. Or having really good sales letters, sales copy, webinars, video sales letters. You know, it's not enough just to put out a little trickle of marketing and expect that back end to sell. If you think about it, when you went to the circus, I mean, the carnival, what they had to sell those back ends were they called them a bally. So they had people, and I forget what they were called, but they used a thing called a bally, and the bally was what they would say to get you to come into the show, right? And they would get people, first thing they would get people is to draw closer. So the first thing you want to do is more intimacy. They would get people, come on up, folks. Come on up, folks. In just a second, the fire-eating girl is going to be out here. Come on up. I want you to be able to see, right? And they would get people to all come up. And they would have a couple teaser acts one or two that would come out, and they had a really smooth process for selling tickets. People just didn't go back there and just automatically spend all this money on the shows and the rides. They aggressively sold the shows and the rides, right? You just can't have sales it's hard to have many sales just by default. Well, I told people there was a show back there, ain't no one buying. I told people there's a ride back there, but bless God, nobody went back there and bought it. I mean, you got to have so they had a pitch. The Valley was their pitch, right? I was out at a flea market, a gigantic, enormous flea market here in San Antonio, and one of the world's most famous street magicians was there. Johnny Talks a Lot, and then he had a partner, a guy performing with him. The guy performing with him knew about valleys from the circus. So it was called the rope in the bottle, and the rope would go in the bottle, and the rope could hold up the bottle. He would just stick the rope in the bottle, and the rope could hold it up, right? And it's a very simple trick. It's like you learn it, you get it in your first magic set. But he would get a whole circle of people around him by performing this trick. And he said, well, the reason is because it's a Bally. And the Bally was, come on up, folks. I got a little man in this bottle. I'm going to show you the little man in this bottle. Come on up, folks. I got a little man in this bottle, and he's going to perform for you. Right? Yeah, barkers or talkers. And so the guy, he would get everybody come on forward so you can see the little man in the bottle, right? And he would sit there talking about the little man in the bottle for 10 minutes. And then he would perform. His trick was he'd stick the rope in the bottle, and the bottle would stick on it, and he'd maybe swing it around. Yes, the little man in the bottle is holding the rope. I mean, it's like, it's pretty amazing that the guy could draw this big crowd and get what we call the tips, right? And so forth. The carnival pitches were interesting too. I don't even remember. I wrote a newsletter on it once because there's 5 steps to it, but the most important step is the turn. So you have the free thing that pulls people up, the free show. Come on up. The so-and-so guy is going to swallow the sword. He's going to swallow the fire-eating sword or whatever, right? And so everybody comes up. And then the turn is when they're like, now when you go back, folks, you're going to be seeing the alligator lady and the whoever, right? That's called the turn, right? And so, you have this thing. The free thing, that's the front end. That brings people in. And then you have the turn that gets them to spend money when they're back there on the back end of the circus. So the question is, do you have a back end, and do you have a good Bally for it? Do you have a good pitch for it? Right? Because they ain't just going back there and buying the show. They ain't gonna buy the ticket to see the alligator lady or whoever. You got to have a pitch, right? You got to have a really good pitch. And, the masters of the Midway and these shows, had done that pitch thousands of times, so they were extremely good at it, right? Some of them were very, very, very famous for their ability to do it. So anyway, that's my thought for today, is just thinking about your business, thinking about your front end. If you don't have the front end, you've got to have the fire-eating lady or someone come out who's going to come out to draw the crowd around, right? To draw the tip around. Same thing, you had to have the man in the bottle to get all the people to come up because they wanted to see the little man in the bottle, right? So you got to have some kind of front end for your business that attracts the crowds, right? Because if you ain't got that, then your back end isn't going to sell. So anyway, that's what I learned from Jay Abraham. I hope this is useful to you. Appreciate y'all showing up today. You all have a great day, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye for now. Yeah, Rick says most also had an upsell or feature attraction they sold once inside. Yeah, that's very true, Rick. Absolutely, and it's a great lesson for our business. Upsells, back ends, and so forth. All right, guys, you all have a great day. See you tomorrow.